Thank you, Natalia, for being here in our conference today. And my first question is, how much is Russian media and work in Russian media different compared to the Western type of media? What are the main differences?
Well, first of all, thank you for a nice invitation, and I really enjoy being here. It's a great audience, and what I marked for myself, it's a good atmosphere, a good combination of hospitality and business approach, so I find it very rarely. And as for your question, I think the main difference is the target groups that the media are targeting to. The Western media are writing so that Western subscribers or readers will read them, and we have a Russian group. So, and that brings all the difference with it. The way you put the phrases, the way, what topics do you talk about, or what opinions do you support or not support. So the client of the Russian media is Russian reader. So this client requires different attention and approach than the Western media. So basically the procedures of working with media could be similar. I mean, you still would have to reach the media, you still would have to somehow find what's interesting for the, for this particular journalist maybe, or editor-in-chief maybe. So the procedure, the algorithm of work would be similar more or less. But what you put there, the content, that's going to be different for sure.
I have heard some Estonians telling that they are afraid of Russian media because some kind of political background, that they are afraid of choosing one media channel to work very closely with because it might be connected to a party or not to a party. Is that true concern? Do you feel this in your own work, or is it something that we Estonians just are afraid of?
Well, I understand what you're talking about, and that probably has a lot of sense in it. You working with any kind of media, you would have to know who is standing behind it, because that's the way you would think what topics will not be accepted there. Well, but that's not something to be afraid of. That's something to be aware of and keep in mind in your work in order not to lose your time on useless work. And honestly speaking, if we talk about business media, that applies more, because behind business media is always someone. And if you talk about leisure or entertaining media, magazines, I mean, that's easier. Okay. Should be easy.
Here in the conference, one question, comment also was that we Estonians usually think that we need to get publications in the kind of nationwide media, as we are just such a small nation. We almost don't have local media, and the comment was that in Russia it's maybe much more important to work with a local media or any niche channels. Is that correct, or what do you think about it?
Well, I think that it all depends on the target goal that you're setting. If you're promoting Estonia as a destination and you would think that people from Urals would go to Estonia, yes, I guess then you should go nationwide. But I think that's a bit of shooting too wide, and that's going to be too expensive. So I would suggest to search for local media and niche media as well. And what also was a good thing that I was really happy to hear, that Estonians understand that Russia is very diverse in itself. It's like several different parts, several different types of mentalities. It's still Russian, but the person from Moscow and St. Petersburg, well, that's already two persons, but still if we take bigger city person and let's say closest Pskov person, I mean, these are two different people, and they want to hear different things. They will make decisions differently, so you have to address them differently. And that's another advantage of local approach, because you can actually put the right context to the right audience.
But if you compare the influence of different media channels, let's say TV, print media, and internet media, maybe also radio, what we could consider as suitable media channels for doing PR, what are the most influential ones currently?
Well, it's commonly acknowledged that TV is a good channel to, and one of the most expensive as well. And it's kind of difficult to answer that question without knowing what are we doing, why are we doing this. I mean, expensive or most influential for what? For what task? If you want to reach, for example, youngsters who like to travel and they want to make it cheap and fast and easy, then probably internet would be a better idea than TV. But if you're targeting on families, then that could be a different approach for them. So you always have to keep in mind what you're doing in this particular thing. And the better you target, the more effective your communication will be, the lower the cost of contact will be.
Talk about the blogosphere and bloggers. How influential are they? They have a lot of followers, but how influential are they as really, if they suggest something, do people really trust them? Could we use them? Is this the new type of media that is arising, or is it just a club of people who write the diaries and really do not have any influence?
Well, I think it's bloggers are some internet thing. Well, sorry, but internet appearance, new type of media, I would say, and we cannot just, we cannot risk on ignoring them, because this is a target group that is free to write about whatever they want to. So if you're worrying what journalists will think about you and write about your resort or your restaurant, why don't you do the same thing about the bloggers? And of course there are different types of them, as there are different types of media as well. There are some top ones that would be more influential, that would have more followers and more trust, and they would have a longer history of their post, and that means that they could be really influential on the target group. And the good thing is that if I'm reading some blogger, I do trust his opinion. I cannot agree maybe on everything, but I feel like he's like almost my friend, This is like an internet friend. And I would trust his opinions on the particular destinations more than a TV commercial, for example. But of course there are, and it's difficult to get their attention of those bloggers, because they understand their responsibility as well of how influential they could be. But there are lower group of lower bloggers who write maybe not as much, who maybe not as targeted in topics. They could write about many various things, and that could seem more like a diary. But still I would keep them in mind as well, because they could be, if they are working on the local market, for example, of St. Petersburg, they are known only in St. Petersburg and they have 2,000 followers in St. Petersburg, I would keep that person in mind. Absolutely. Because that means 2,000 people will read about whatever this person is writing about, and they will, in a way, consider this opinion.
What are currently, or who are currently the most influential bloggers in St. Petersburg about travel?
We worked with 2 bloggers last year, and I can say that they are writing only about travels. One is an old friend of mine, Natalia Belatelova, and she's more of a lifestyle blogger. She gives marvelous reports on new performances in St. Petersburg, and she travels out and she would tell about the hotel, the truth. If she will notice something, she will put it on, because that's what they do, how they earn their trust. And I like for that work. We also worked a lot with a blogger from website yaturistka.ru, means I'm a tourist. I'm a woman tourist from Russian. So what they are particularly targeted on tourism, and they give reports on the hotels and different attraction points on the local destinations. I can't say that they have huge influence, but those people that I've chosen to work with because I thought they were good for hotel promotions, for example.